Hi everyone, my name is Chrissy Stansel and I'm a student of game design at Full Sail. And I'm here today to talk to you about how to write a story in an effective way with some information on how to set up the different points you should have within a story. Let's go with the basics first. After reading many different bits of information, I found three common denominators: the story question, the protagonist like Buffy here, and the antagonist. A story question basically sets up the entire story you are writing. The simple format taken from the live journal of Jim Butcher is as such. When something happens, the main character pursues a goal. But will she succeed when the antagonist provides opposition? Okay, let's make an example here. When Japan bombed Pearl Harbor, the U.S. declared war on Japan to defend American freedom. Will they succeed when they have a divided front in Europe and the South Pacific with Japan and Germany? See, quite easy, right? At least it gives you a start. There's another way of doing this, which is called a story arc, just like you see in these three pictures. Granted, they're not all arc-like. The main picture shows a half circle, an arc with points ticked off. This is a helpful tool for writers to establish the major points they want to convey to the audience that is reading their books. Without these major points, the books will fail. Taken from Nigel Watts's Writing a Novel and Getting Published are 8 points you should use to really format your books with. You have stasis, trigger, the quest, surprise, critical choice, climax, reversal, and resolution. Watts stated that this was a useful checklist to determine the progress of your book. Let's go over stasis. This is the start, the normal daily life going on with your main character. This is what they are doing in their daily life before everything starts happening to them. Once this is established, you can go on to what causes everything to start happening, which then transfer into triggering everything. The trigger. This is something beyond the control of your main character, and it sparks off the rest of the storyline. Think of Dragon Age Origins. If you pick the human noble protagonist, the trigger is when their home is attacked and they have to fight their way out of the castle to safety, which then leads into the quest. The quest starts normally with an unpleasant trigger, one that forces the main character to search for a way to fix everything that went wrong suddenly in their life. The quest can be a pleasant trigger also, like finding a treasure map, which would most likely lead to increasing the state of pleasure your character has. The next part is surprise. Basically, this encompasses several elements and it takes up most of the middle part of the story. Surprise can be pleasant or it can be very unpleasant, but most often, this is the gray area where most obstacles and complications occur. This is also the trouble and conflict your main character happens into. Your main character has to make a game changing decision for good or bad. This choice lets the reader know about the character as their personality emerges at a moment of critical choice. This has to be a decision by the character to take a particular path, and it's not something that happens by chance at all. With that choice made, you should be moving into the climax, the highest peak of tension in your story. Think of the three little pigs. The wolf blows down the first two houses and gets to the last, made of brick. At this point, does the house come down or will it stand? Of course it stands, but you feel the tension of that situation, right? Now that the climax is past, what are consequences of that? This is what the reversal is. It is the result of the choices made by the character. This should change your main character for good or ill. Watts stated that this should be inevitable and probable. That story should unfold relentlessly, implacably, and plausibly. The last thing to mention here is the resolution. A return to a fresh state of stasis, basically. This is where the character should be changed, wiser, and enlightened, but where the story being told is completed. Now let's go back to the beginning where I mentioned the story question, protagonist, and antagonist to you. When you are creating both the hero and the villain, you need to write their stats down first. This is the nitpicky things about a person that makes them different. From hair to eyes, personality, and traits. Make them interesting to read about is the next step. Maybe something unusual about them, height wise or facial wise. As an example, the protagonist is our guide through the book, and if the guide is boring, we're probably not going to stay on board for the entire read. A protagonist must appeal to us in some way, deeply so, but you have great latitude in what way that might be. Harry here really appealed to us as a hero who didn't want to be one throughout all the books. When you create an antagonist or a villain, you need to define what evil is in your creative world first. From there, you can flesh out why your villain is evil. Give him or her a history, a reason for doing the things they do. Voldemort's reason here for being evil was simple fear of death and a contempt for love he never had. One of the most important things to remember as you write your story is you need to write down your minor characters, just as you did with your protagonist and antagonist. Give them features and personalities so that you can reference them later on. You really don't want to go back and reread what you wrote just to remind yourself of their quirks. Let's take another look at plot setup. Okay, sit back and steady yourselves here, guys. You can have plots in plots. Plots inception. The 8 steps I mentioned earlier, you can use an arc like this to set them up and give yourself at least a view of where you want to go. Each wedge can have its own subclass too. Stunned yet? I want you to understand, after all this is said and done, if you use paper for all your ideas, then your floor and wall will be papered up with them. So here's a good suggestion. Look for free writing software out there. And for the paid ones too. Try them and see what fits best for you. They can organize people and locations for you in one click. These steps I've given you today, they are basics that are not law. After everything I've read concerning writing books, one thing stands out. There's no true way to write one. You determine the story, and it is you who determines where it all goes. If you can't finish it, perhaps it was not meant for you to do.